Hello everyone, welcome to Climbing Hacks. So I decided to create this video because I noticed that there are many videos on YouTube talking about how to belay and also how to spot, but there is this specific moment that you're spotting someone that you need to transition from spotting to belaying, and to me it's a gray area that not so many people talk about, specifically here on YouTube. As a disclaimer, I try to create a guideline to improve your belaying game, but it's very difficult to create a one-size-fits-all solution. So, as always, use your common sense, and I cannot be responsible for what you do in the crag. Independently, the most important thing here is that you should always talk to your climber, because he or she may know better what makes them feel comfortable while they're climbing. So the question here is, when is the right moment to transition from spotting to belaying? First, we start here with a climber and a belayer on the beach, and you can see this beautiful picture with them trad climbing, so there are no boats here. First, let's imagine that we have a few boats in this route, as we can see with these red crosses that I created. They might be far apart, but I will move them around for a thought experiment so that we can see how comfortable a climber would feel or a belayer would feel belaying someone that is in this specific situation. So with this, in this first condition, you can see that the first clip was fairly quick because it was right there, but the second boat is quite high. And as a belayer, you're probably feeling very uncomfortable with this climber reaching all this height. But as I shift the position of this X, you can see that the condition becomes a little bit better because the climber had to climb while it was being spotted for a longer time, but that also means that by the time it reached the second boat, this uncomfortable zone that the belayer would have to go through is diminished. In a third condition, where I put this first boat even higher, you can see that as the climber needs to, let's say, free solo until the first boat, with the belayer spotting him, of course, by the time you have the first clip, reaching the second clip is quite safe, at least from a belayer standpoint. Now let's shift things around a little bit and let's add a third boat. Clearly in the beginning, having to spot someone might feel a little bit unsafe depending on the weight of the person, depending on the height that this person is climbing all the way to the first boat. And by the moment this person has the first clip on the first boat, you reach temporary safety. By the time you're reaching the second boat, you're reaching enough height that falling from that height would put you back on the floor. This orange zone that I like to think that it's the please don't fall zone. It's the position where many of us as belayers start to beg for the climber to please clip, because if you fall from that area, you are just too high for us to spot you. And also, it's not really fully safe because the length of rope that this person already pulled up would mean that this person would land back on the floor. As always, I just try to imagine this problem in a mathematical way. So let's try to imagine this as x with the distance between the belayer's belt, the belayer's waist, all the way to the first boat, and y being the distance from the first boat to the second boat. As a belayer, you really need to ask yourself, before a climber starts climbing, you should just look at the crag, looking at the route that you need to do, or your climber is going to do, and just wonder, is the distance x bigger than the distance y? If the answer for this question is yes, the first boat, the x distance is bigger than the y distance, then you should just spot your climber until it reaches the first boat. Once you have the first clip, you can just comfortably start to belay him and tell him that he's on belay. However, if we make a small change in this setting and we just lower a little bit the first boat, keeping the second boat in the same height, you can see that the distance x decreased and the distance y increased. If the y distance is bigger than the x distance, as a belayer, you find yourself with two options in your hand. I would say none of them is optimal, but these are the options that you have. If you're lucky that you're belaying someone that is 20 kilos lighter than you, someone that is considerably lighter than you, and the height is not that high, you still have a chance to, once the climber clips the first boat, you can still continue to spot the climber. A second option is, in case your climber is not lighter than you, your best chance is to continue belaying. If you continue to belay, you have to pay attention on how to close this gap. That's why in this figure I introduce a third measure, which is the distance z. If you see that your climber is losing balance and you see that your climber is losing it, you should consider jumping back, jumping towards the floor, so that you can increase the distance that you have between your belay loop and the first boat, because this distance should be bigger than y. Otherwise, your climber will hit the floor. Could I spot a climber and belay at the same time? The meaning of spotting is that we have a rope system that is not offering protection, or maybe it is still not offering protection. But if it was offering protection, you wouldn't be spotting, you would be belaying, because belaying is much better. You have the assistance of a device to hold that force. If you're finding yourself in a situation that you want to do both at the same time, just ask yourself, could you belay instead? One clear benefit of holding the dead rope is that you would make this transition from spot to belaying faster, because the moment you're not spotting anymore, you just lower your hand and that's it, you're on belay. But I just have one consideration regarding which belay device you're using. My only problem with spotting and belaying at the same time is when you're using an ATC, because probably some of you have noticed that when you are trying to belay someone, if you lift your dead rope, the belaying forces are considerably smaller. That would be the worst of two worlds, because you would not only see your dead rope being pulled towards the belay device and you incapable of holding it, and you will see the climber falling on your left hand and you incapable of holding him. So I strongly encourage climbers nowadays to buy an auto-blocking device. Some countries like Singapore, they already started the crackdown on ATCs. So just like figure eights in the past, people also do not allow people to belay with ATCs. That's it for today. I hope that this helped climbers that may have been thinking on which time would be the best time to do this transition from spotting to belaying. And as always, as I mentioned in the beginning, no matter which method you prefer, the most important thing here is to find something that your climber is comfortable with, because his life or her life is going to be the one on the line. So at the end, it's all about him or her.